Xiao Chang regretted it. Why come to this remote mountain village in such bad weather? Why did she rush to find a place to stay as soon as the sky fell? Why did she hastily nod her head in agreement when the shop said that there were no rooms available and that she could only share a room with someone else? Xiao Chang deeply regretted it. Xiao Chang glanced at the female sleeping next to her and was startled. It was a long, thin woman with long, dark hair wrapped in a bright red shawl. She lay down towards the wall, curled up like a baby in the womb. The wind whistled through the window, and Xiao Chang sighed, remembering her classmate's advice to her. Xiao Chang, don't travel to that place. Even if you want to go when the festival is crowded. That place is usually sparsely populated, and the hotels are barely open. The one or two that are open are shady shops with strange people living there. It's not worth it for a girl in her flower season to venture there. At that time, Xiao Chang frowned dryly and said, that's a rumor deliberately created to enhance the glamour of the trip. After hearing what Xiao Chang said, her classmates were even more dissuasive, and someone told her a horrible story. 3 months ago, when the autumn wind was blowing, a girl who liked photography came to the Valley of the Wind's natural village alone. There was only one hotel open at the time, and it was so simple that she had to share a room with another woman. That night, she heard the beastly breathing of the woman she was staying with. She sat up and gently looked at the woman and found her curled up in a baby's sleeping position, her face pale. And her eyes were surprisingly open, unblinking. The girl was terrified. Just then she saw a horrible sight. From the pale walls slowly emerged a woman dressed in a robe and long hair. The woman removed the entrails from her stomach and took a bite. Then the woman approached the girl. The girl passed out and woke up the next morning. The weather in the Valley of the Winds was still so bad that the girl couldn't go down the mountain. Thinking of the horrible scene last night, she had a feeling that she would not be able to leave here alive, so she wrote down all these experiences. And then what? The students pursued. Then of course the girl died. Her records were found, but she died in the wilderness. No one knows what shop she stayed at, and the police have no intention of looking into such psychic incidents. Dawn disobeyed the well-intentioned advice of her classmates and made her way to the Valley of the Winds. But now she regretted it. She saw the woman on the bed opposite her, curled up and asleep, just like in the story. She couldn't see her face, and Xiao Chang didn't dare to look for fear that her eyes would be open. The night was deepening and the wind was howling. In the west, night might be the time when the gods descended. But in the east, night was likely to be haunted by ghosts. Xiao Chang was so scared that she was shivering in bed. Late at night, she was woken up by strange sounds. She rubbed her eyes and listened quietly. The sound was like the panting of a wild beast, sharp and full of killing energy. Xiao Chang's whole body was on fire and she was completely sleepless. She shuddered and took a sip of tea which was served by the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper was a half-aged woman, and she said, "The nights in the Valley of the Winds have the sound of the wind, and this tea can calm the mind, so if you can't sleep, it's easy to fall asleep after drinking this tea." Xiao Chang really couldn't sleep now, but it wasn't because of the sound of the wind outside the window. She hastily drank a cup of tea. She fully regained consciousness. From the next bed came a voice. The woman with the red shawl was still in her baby-like sleeping position, facing the wall. Her breathing was terrible, like a wild beast hissing in her ears. Dawn remembered her classmates' words. Fear and curiosity grew in her mind. So Dawn crept out of bed and cautiously looked at the woman. The woman's face was white, like a porcelain doll. It was alarming, and the word imposter was the first thing that popped into her mind. Xiao Chang moved closer to her and saw that on the pale face, the big black eyes were wide open and she didn't even blink. Xiao Chang hurriedly covered her mouth, almost making a sound. Why would there be someone like that? Was the woman she shared a room with still alive? Xiao Chang was very apprehensive and wanted to seek help, but didn't dare to make a sound. She was worried about angering that woman. Besides, she had absolutely no idea what kind of people the other guests at the inn were. What if they were the same as this woman? Dawn couldn't imagine it anymore. She went back to her bed and lay down. But then she felt a shadow moving on the wall. Dawn hurriedly sat up and stared straight across the room. There was indeed a shadow on that gaudy wall. It was the form of a woman, slender and draped in long hair. The long hair almost covered her face, revealing red lips and also pale, pointed teeth. Her body swayed like a bamboo pole against the wall, almost collapsing. But the shadow on the wall did not fall. The shadow reached out to Xiao Chang, its hand red and thin. Dawn could almost see bits of blood dripping from the shadow's fingertips. The shadow approached her. Dawn's heart rate skyrocketed and she felt dizzy. As the shadow with the long hair approached, Xiao Chang fainted. In her unconscious state, Xiao Chang seemed to be able to feel something. She felt the shadow getting closer, but the shadow was draped in a bright red shawl. The shadow moved closer to her face and took a closer look. The wide open, ebony eyes, like black glass beads set in white porcelain, were black and white and particularly frightening. Xiao Chang wanted to move her body, but found that she was completely unable to move. She could only lie half asleep. The morning sun reflected on Xiao Chang's face as she finally got rid of her nightmare for the night. The woman wearing a red shawl also woke up. Her face was no longer pale and she looked like an ordinary person in the morning. She said, "You're awake, you slept well." "Oh, yeah," Xiao Chang said politely. For the first time, she looked directly at this woman and she felt like she knew her. "My name is Yiling. I'm here for a photo shoot. How about you?" The woman took off her red shawl. "My name is Xiao Chang. I'm also here to take pictures." Yiling said this and looked at Xiao Chang meaningfully. "Do you want to go back?" Xiao Chang gathered her courage. "I think it's nice here." "I don't want to go back either." The Valley of the Winds under the sun wasn't so scary. Xiao Chang and Yiling went downstairs to eat together, and the shopkeeper smiled as he brought the food early, saying calmly, "Since a female tourist died in our shop, it's not often that we see girls like you who come along." Sure enough, it was this shop. Dawn surmised in her mind. She noticed that the shopkeeper was carefully looking at Yiling's face. It seemed that the shopkeeper was afraid of Yiling. Yiling had a calm expression on her face as she quietly sipped her tea, then wolfed it down. Although Xiao Chang mimicked her appearance, she felt in her heart that this woman, Yiling, was definitely not simple. Xiao Chang guessed that Yiling might be an assassin prowling the area, or she was simply a grudge spirit. She sneaks into the inn in the Valley of the Wind and works with the shopkeeper to harm people. Yiling is so capable that the shopkeepers are afraid of her. Xiao Chang confirmed that she was not wrong. "This woman called Yiling wants to turn against me," Xiao Chang said secretly. At that moment, a boy appeared in front of the table and said in a bright tone, "Hello, beauties." Everyone's eyes turned to him. The boy introduced himself in a dignified manner. "My name is Xiao. I'm here to play. Please take care of me." Yiling replied coldly, "I'm alone. What's so? Fun?" Xiao's face was a little red. He looked down and said, "Actually, this period of time I lost my love. I want to find a place to be quiet. This is the best place." People who have fallen out of love can easily attract the sympathy of others. So Xiao Chang began to talk to Xiao. Yiling quickly finished her meal and hurried back. "I know who you are." Xiao suddenly lowered his head and said quietly to Xiao Chang. Xiao Chang's heart shook, and she immediately resumed her bewildered look. "What did you say?" "Yeah," Xiao frowned and said, "I heard that he has a drug to control people's hearts, and if I give her this drug, she won't leave me anymore and will stay with me all the time." "That's no joke," Xiao Chang said. Xiao's face was visibly uncomfortable. "Don't you believe that?" "I'll come to you anyway." Xiao Chang suddenly lost her appetite and she put down her chopsticks. When they went out to take pictures, Xiao Chang met Yiling. Yiling kindly asked Xiao Chang to travel with her. She was a bit scared but agreed. Xiao Chang put Yiling in her shot on purpose, because ghosts don't appear in the shots. But the figure of Yiling was clearly seen from the lens. What was going on? At this time, Yiling turned around and smiled. "A girl died here before. Have you heard of it?" Xiao Chang deliberately shook her head. "That child was like us. She liked to take pictures, looking for unique scenery here, and she died soon after." "Ah, how horrible," Dawn said. However, the girl's body was found on the moors and was twisted all over with black blood. "I think someone from the shop took her to the moors for fear of causing trouble for the shop." "And how did she die?" Dawn asked. Yiling rolled her eyes and smiled horribly at Xiao Chang. "Did you die so tragically because you met some ghost?" At those words and gaze, Xiao Chang couldn't help but be creeped out. Yiling suddenly said, then without waiting for Xiao Chang to agree, she left with her camera on her back. Xiao Chang could only stand there. The wind suddenly whistled and swept through the jungle. Riding the wind, Xiao Chang suddenly heard a cry of grief. It wasn't a man, nor a woman, nor a human being, nor a ghost. That voice was really real, very thin and high, very sharp, like someone whipping in the wind. Dawn looked around fearfully, the only gloomy tree, swaying in the wind, scattering a handful of leaves. Yikes, she was so scared she was on the verge of crying. That's when the figure suddenly appeared in the forest. Her hair was blowing in the wind right over her face, dark and creepy looking. Xiao Chang hastily took a step back, but she recognized that it was Yiling. This ghostly Yiling. Or it could be a ghost. In the evening, Xiao Chang and Yiling returned tiredly. In the vermilion sunset, Yiling's figure swayed like a snake. Xiao Chang had a bad feeling. As expected, something happened in the shop. The shopkeeper's face turned pale and her whole body shivered. When she saw Yiling and Xiao Chang, she pounced on them like she saw a savior. What to do? What's wrong? Xiao Chang asked. Dead. The shopkeeper cried. The shop's Xiao died outside. Don't cry. Please speak properly. Xiao Chang asked anxiously. the shopkeeper pulled Xiao Chang and Yiling towards the woods outside the shop. After walking for a while in a green meadow, they saw Xiao lying in a strange position. When they approached, the sight was horrifying. His entire body was twisted with muscles, covered in blood, and had a strange stench. "Ladies, please, don't make a sound." The shopkeeper took Xiao Chang's hand. "Get out. I simply can't explain when the police come. Look at the way Zihao died. He must have been killed by something. I'm not that powerful for a woman." Xiao Chang felt sorry for the shopkeeper and nodded. Yiling glanced coldly at the shopkeeper and then at Xiao Chang and didn't say anything. Xiao Chang looked around and was surprised to find that it wasn't far from where she and Yiling took the picture, only a few hundred meters away. However, the forest was densely populated with trees and they could not see each other. Xiao Chang recalled that Yiling had left during the photo shoot. She came here and had enough time to kill Zihao and come back. Xiao Chang felt chills all over her body and felt dangerous. In the setting sun, Yiling's face gleamed horribly white. As night fell again, Xiao Chang drank the same tea and fell asleep in a daze. During the night, she felt figures shifting in front of her eyes, rummaging for something at the end of her bed. Xiao Chang tried to figure out who it was, but she couldn't move as if she was in a nightmare. In the darkness, Xiao Chang heard cold laughter with resentment, almost despair. I don't know how long it took, but Xiao Chang woke up. The darkness of the night filled her mind with fear.